This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. You know, just me and my only friends. But today, we are joined by a few legends. Shit popped off last night. I don't know what's going on. What's poppin', Sidekick?
It's the World Series, man. It's officially the start.
It hasn't even started yet, and shit is just popping off.
Well, I mean, we're here at 10 a.m. It's basically started.
I guess it started, you're right.
This is the beginning of it. Before we get to our special guest, I want to give a huge shout out to our sponsor for the WSOP, WPT Global. They are running a spring series right now, headed by a 1K Prime Championship. And if you guys are in a available territory, head over to WPTglobal.com or click the link below in the description. Use code Berkey for a special sign-up bonus. We're also doing a giveaway to today's 2 p.m. 1K Prime on WPT Global. If you head over to our Twitter page at onlyfriends_pod, you can see the details to the giveaway. All you have to do is be in a qualifying territory, leave your username and user ID, and we're going to select a winner at random at 2 p.m. or sorry, at noon. The tournament's at 2 p.m. You must play today. That's the only caveat to this. So head on over there, get yourself a free 1K, and enjoy the overlay. You know, that's really what it's all about. It's the summer of overlay.
Love the overlays.
Speaking of overlay, how's this weight loss bet going, Deeb?
It's good, man. I'm down over 30 pounds already. Definitely where I wanted to be going in the series. It's kind of my goal was to be around this point.
You look good, cuz.
It's the beard. People call it the beard, but it hides the double chin really well.
I see.
Yeah. I've got a lot of tricks up my sleeve.
I can't grow one, so I have to stay skinny.
You can't grow one?
No, I'm patchy, man.
You think I'm not patchy? This took 2.5 months to even kind of cover up. You know?
Yeah, that's fair.
You just got to accept the grind.
Would you consider a little Rogaine for the beard?
I'm on the fence of whether or not to go full dreads at some point during this.
Wow.
That's a lot of weight.
Let me help you.
Yeah.
No.
I'm not doing this for vanity, Conrad.
I'll take a bet if I can shave it while he's sleeping.
Hey, Bill Perkins is going to be listening, Kim. You got to remember what side you're on. So this is Kim, my massage therapist, who I found literally 1 week before I took the bet. And I've gotten a lot of massage, and she worked on me, and I was like, you are who I'm looking for. She gets insane deep pressure, finds spots that never could imagine anyone can get to. It's insane what she's done. And once I booked this bet, I knew that she was going to be such an integral part. And then when I mentioned I was going to Vegas, and I said, kind of half joking, I was like, do you want to come out to Vegas for 2 months with me? She's like, yeah, I'm in. So she's here.
All right. What really happened was he came in and said, oh, my girl in Vegas doesn't do that. I said, well, when your girl in Vegas can't do what I do, fly me out. He came back twice, and he's like, all right, you serious about Vegas? Yeah.
So is this just going to be like scheduled daily massages to keep you in, or are you going to torture her and have her at the table like 24/7?
I don't know yet. She's still working on getting her license to officially work at the tables. I got her room, and we actually carried a table from home here, so there's going to be flexibility. And I don't know, since I've never done this before, I don't know what schedule's going to be best. I don't know how much lifting I'm going to be able to do. I don't know how often I'm going to need it. The last few years, I've probably done 2 to 3 massages a week. I would go to this, Thai place where they would step all over my back, and this girl was great. But unfortunately, she's pregnant now, so she's not doing the heavy pressure. And so, when I found out about that and knowing Kim was coming out here, I knew I needed her close by, and she's going to be so key to my summer success.
Have you dealt with any injuries thus far?
Kim, you probably can answer that better than me.
We're preventing injuries for him.
Sure.
So like his weak knees, he's never worked out before. So you're taking somebody who's never worked out and doing all these really heavy exercises. And I'm like, no, scale it back a little. So there's a lot of give and take for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, like she communicates with the trainer, was like, hey, do knee strengthening exercises, no squats, like She's like, you keep getting, these knots in your shoulders, adjust this. And it's all that prevents. So talking to the nutritionist, like, okay, we're getting too many knots. We need more potassium. And like the way she like cleans off, the fascia and all the other fluid in my muscles, it's great. Like every day I lift after getting a massage, my trainer says how much better I can do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a big part of functional movement. I think that the guy I was telling you about that I went to after my knee surgery that I've basically been going to for the last 10 years, that's what he specializes in. Everything's about functional movement training. So you do a lot of unilateral stuff, right? So it's basically to get all your movement patterns in as close to ideal form as possible so that you don't have some sort of imbalance where it's like when you squat, you lean a little bit to the right and then your left hip starts to give out.
That's what we're finding. Yeah.
You're just going to naturally have a lot of those issues because one, you haven't done this a lot. And two, even if you did, you're still human, Yeah,
I always knew my legs were a little uneven. I had kind of a bad, mild scoliosis. And so this definitely these things like Kim's noticed dropping my leg, after doing some hip work and trying to keep that as close to even as possible has been so helpful.
Well, the real grind begins tomorrow, my friend.
For some of us.
When do you play?
I'm playing tomorrow.
Okay.
Are you coming in the 25K 6max?
I will not miss the 6max event.
Wow.
Can't. It's the only thing I think I'm good at.
Are you selling at Robbie J. Lude markup level?
What she said? She's marked down?
Marked down, yes.
Wait, is she playing the 25K?
No.
Okay.
For 5Ks and 3Ks.
Did you just get nervous?
Yeah, he's scared of her at the
I
table.
just got nervous.
No.
She's very intimidating in poker.
I am not selling. I'm not selling to the 25K. I'm not selling to anything I'm playing. Everything's within buy-in range.
Yeah.
I didn't get a bracelet bet, so I don't think I'm going to play a ton.
Well, I mean, I told you when you talked to me, I knew your line was off, and I heard you talk to Zanzak and a few other smart guys. It's so much easier than people realize, but it's because you see so little and there's so much variance behind it. But a great player, especially a name like you, especially after the year you've had, people are going to be so afraid of you.
I don't know why. I don't do this. Man, we just had a tournament academy, and I let our head coach, Matt Hunt, run the whole thing. This guy knows so much about tournament poker. I don't know shit. He's talking about risk premiums. He's talking about how to calculate, not calculate, but how to estimate ICM whenever you're deep in the event. I'm like, I am not folding ace queen. Okay.
Do you think I've ever paid attention to ICM in my whole career?
Well, no, but I don't think you're like a huge favorite to win a no limit bracelet either.
Yeah, I'm not, but I mean, I'm still got a good shot. I still do really well in big fields.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. It seems really fucking hard, but hey, maybe we rip one off. You're going to be playing afternoon events though, right?
I play every event, Matt. I play about 120 to 150 bullets during the summer. So
walk me through that because you're going for player of the year as you do every year, of course. Do you have any side action on that?
No one wants to bet me.
Did you have side action last year?
I had one small bet where I actually bet against myself. So I think it was 3-1 or 2-1 that I bet against REA that me or Negreanu wouldn't win player of the year.
Oh, okay.
I took the field.
Okay. That seems sharp.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty knowledgeable of the equities of this stuff. I do think that with the weight loss bet and with some other stuff, I wasn't sure how close I would be, and the schedule changes.
Yeah.
It's gonna be harder to multi-table and do some of the things I normally do. So I really was not as confident this year as I would have been in years past to make some bets. And I had some crazy ideas, but I just had too much going on to really organize them.
Why is it harder to multi-table? You're going to be a lot faster.
No, that side is definitely going to be better. My body's used to not running, but moving now. But no, because the 10Ks, they adjusted the day one structure to be 8 hours instead of 10. And they moved up the start time and the finish time. So what I used to do is I'd bag a no limit tournament at 8, 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, whatever it was, go play 5 hours in the 3 p.m. event, max late reg or hop in. And then also the start time would be noon for the no limit and 2 o'clock for the other one. So there would actually be overlay in the breaks. So as soon as I would get to the first break of the first one, I would then go play the other one and then just go back and forth.
Gotcha.
So this year it's going to be different. So I think the day twos are also going to be closer together. So it's not as often as I'm like, well, I'm going to have to be 2 hours into this tournament that much deeper before I start multi-tabling officially.
Gotcha. That's unfortunate.
Yeah. How does that work whenever you're choosing your schedule? So if you have some down bad 1K no limit at 11 or 10 a.m., whatever the fuck it is, and then you have a 10K mixed championship at 3 or 2. How are you playing both of these?
So I hop into the 1K at the start, and I go absolutely animal, and I make sure I have like 10x average by the time the 10K starts. I mean, 10x starting stack.
I make sure I have 10x starting stack.
Oh, it's that easy, Conrad. You just got to go animal, obviously.
Yeah.
But then you just hope that's enough to bag then?
No, I mean, like, I go play that because the 10K has late reg open for so long.
Right.
So I'm just making sure I'm going to cash. I'm going to do it. Like, the way the POY formula is, the min cash is worth, say, 50 points. And then the next 30% is worth 100 points. And then if you get to the next 50%, it's 200 points. So, like, getting to that third tier min cash is so important for POY in those small no limits. That is my sole goal, because once you get to like 120th place out of a 4,000 person field, the next points are 9th place for POY.
Yeah.
So, like, that's kind of my goal, and I work on that. You know, me and Dan Zach have talked a lot during the series. You know, Dan Wyman's in the studio. He came second last year, and, you know, the three of us were talking a lot of POY strategy, because I think we have it pretty optimal at this point.
What is your drive for POY? Like,
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up too.
Pure vanity. So, you know, for those, Conrad, you probably don't know this, Matt will know, like, my first claim to fame in poker was winning the PokerStars tournament leaderboard,
Okay.
the yearly back-to-back my first 2 years. So that was always like how I got notoriety. I've loved leaderboard grind-based challenges, and POY is just that.
Gotcha.
I am not the best player, but I will work the hardest and play the most, and play all the games efficiently enough. And that's what is my skill set. And that's why POY is great for me. And, you know, early in my career, all my friends won it. Frank Casella, Ben Lamb, Gordo, Jason, you know, all these people. And I played more volume than them. And I was a better tournament player. So I got needled forever. So I just said, I'm going to win POY. I won it in 18. I should have won it in 19. It was fucking bullshit what happened to me. And, you know, and obviously battling with D-Negs, him being one who's won 2 and no one else has won 2. It's like, all the things I want to do, and POY I think is the hardest thing to achieve at the World Series. One person wins it.
Sure.
And the one person who wins it had a great summer, worked their ass off, played well, and it really, I think, needs to be celebrated more in the community. And that's been for years, no one took POY seriously. Then I started coming in, talking about it, motivating people, and like pushing for how difficult it really was.
Yeah, the problem is you have to play mixed to win it.
You don't actually. Scott Ball came close to winning it as a no limit player.
But he also won 2 bracelets.
But when you have 100 events, someone's going to win 2 bracelets every year.
All right.
Like it's a massive favorite to win 2 bracelets these days. And that's even if you just play no limit PLO or just no limit. Like if you play the 5Ks, the 100K, you know what I mean? Yeah. Those guys, like a D Peters has a great chance of having a 2 bracelet summer every year.
That's true.
Yeah. I wonder if that would be good enough. I don't know enough about the scoring to know if those high rollers are. I guess so, right? It's the same as like a small.
So they actually give more points. They give more, like
because the buy-in's big.
Yeah. So like the 250K last year when Dan Zach was on the bubble, if he min cashed, he got 300 POY points. First place was like 1250.
Yeah.
So there's so many weird pay jumps of POY jumps where it's such a big kind of like ICM bubble for POY points, and knowing that in each tournament and going on that is so important. So there's multipliers. So like field size really doesn't hurt as it should in POY. There's a lot of things I would change about the formula, but as of now, it seems it's going to stay that way for a while until someone else takes over the World Series or focuses on different things. And because like the problem is if you do field size too important, then the main event winner wins every year. And that was the problem with it for a few years. It's like if someone ever made a final table and won the main, they just won. And that's, I think that's not right for poker.
Yeah, I mean, that's how Greggy and Benba pretty much won.
Well, Ben had a lot. Both of them had
both
won.
Both of them won the 10K 6 max.
Yeah.
And then went right into the main and got first and third, respectively.
I thought Ben won one of the PLOs.
Oh, maybe he won the 10K PLO, which is now the 25K PLO championship.
Well, there's still the 10K PLO.
Oh, okay.
They have a 10K, a 25K, and a 50K now.
Okay, yeah. I get confused with all the additions of the high rollers, but both. I think it was like back-to-back years, if I recall correctly, because Ben made it the same year as Phil, which was 11. But yeah, he ripped off like the last event prior to the main, which must have been the 10K PLO, or maybe he won the 10K PLO and got third in the 10K 6 max, because I think they were back-to-back, and I remember a very key hand where he was coming off the high of shipping a bracelet, and he just like 4-bet jammed king queen, ran right into aces and got the guy out of there, and then just like, heaved up a stack from there and ended up, I think, getting third in that and then third in the main. But yeah, some epic runs. I want to kind of switch to Wyman a little bit since, I don't think a lot of people know that you're a guy, like you're in there, you're in the mix. You got second last year. Nobody knows that.
Oh, no.
For sure.
Definitely.
You've been around for a while. We made a final table together back in the day. I fucked you.
You did.
I fucked him good. I limped the kings. 6 max.
I remember I had the jacks in the big blind.
Yeah.
You did it. You knew I had the jacks.
I knew what was coming, man.
You limped off the 10 bigs. I was like, I probably just has kings. I should just check and find a way out, but gave you the full double.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Did you win, Burke?
No, I managed to get 5th.
Played it great, though.
Yeah, I thought so too.
How do you end up being a short stack in a tournament? Like, you don't seem like the guy who's ever going to end up with that shallow stack.
It was weird. That event was crazy. So it was a 1506 max in, I think, 2017. I was like wire to wire chip leader. I bagged chip lead day 1. I bagged
Was this the
chip
one you
lead
were
day 2.
70% with like 12 left?
No, that was
Okay.
the 1K little one. That was fucking brutal. But day 3, I had like a somewhat tough table. I had Mig to my right and a couple other pros at my table. And I ended up playing like a 200 big blind pot, blind versus Mig, where I flopped, I think, top pair and a gutty, and he had an open-end straight flush draw, and we just got it in. And he binked, and it left me with like 8 bigs. And somehow I managed to like grind that all the way down to the final table where I came in short. I think I came in with like 15 bigs, and it was the unofficial final table of like 7. Managed to, just maneuver, get a little bit lucky. And I ended up like, after doubling through Dan, I ended up running up to like 50 bigs. So I was like second or third in chips, but Cuz got me.
Oh, wow.
Fucking Cuz was getting a little out of line, and I knew it. He opened under the gun 6-handed, and it folded me in the small blind. I had 8-4 suited, and I just knew this guy was too fucking tight. So I 3-bet him, and he just stuffed King Jack off right on me. Left me with like 20 bigs, and I can't handle that stack, so I got out of there promptly. But you've always been a mixed game guy.
Kind of been a no limit guy to start,
Yeah.
and then got into mix kind of when I met Shaun, to be honest, and kind of realized that
Was it because of open face?
maybe a little bit because of open face. I never felt like I had what it took to be the best no limit player. I didn't want to put in the work.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, do what you have to do to get into these games. So I kind of tried to say, I want to walk into a poker room and be able to play whatever the best game is, be that stud or mix or no limit or PLO. So I've always felt like I've been good at every game, not great at any game, and it's been sufficient.
Is there truth to the rumor that you invented Fantasyland?
God, I hate that it is true, but
Wait,
yes,
no.
yes.
Yes.
The
No.
originator of Fantasyland is right
I've been
before you.
The promoter of reminding people that Dan is who did it.
See, I really wish I hadn't, because it was like probably a mid 7-figure mistake at this point.
Well, I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, he was very
gotcha.
kind to his friends after inventing it.
Thanks, Sean.
So wait, you invented it and they figured it out?
Exactly. I mean, the game, like Open Face, started in 2012, I think.
Yeah.
And it was one card at a time. There was no fantasy. It was pure math. So Sean was by far the best in the world at it. And then I remember
That seems so ironic to me. It was pure math. So obviously Deeb was the best in the world.
he was the one willing to put in the work. And
Sure.
I think there was one summer where he was playing huge with some guys from China and just won all of the money. And the game was kind of slowly dying. And out of the blue, we just kind of made up Fantasyland. Let's just try this. Like, we make queens up top. Let's throw some variance in the game. And suddenly it caught on. And, for 2 or 3 years, I remember just everybody was playing Open Face at the series.
Yeah.
And then kind of fell apart. Sean and I have, continued to play till this day. But
That's wild.
We play a lot smaller now. We used to be very bloody. We've had some crazy ideas. Like, we had one idea one time that we get a mulligan any day of gambling for each other in the year. We just get to erase that debt.
And you only get one a year.
One a year. So
That's
we're like,
nice.
we're going to play really big if we do that. So
Yeah,
like, this is probably bad, but like, our friendship ended a few times over the years through some gambling. There was some accusations tossed, but we basically realized that we'd rather be friends, the stakes don't matter that we play. Let's play small, have fun, sit in the room. Like last series, we played a lot of open face after bagging different tournaments or on dinner breaks. It's
Take
fun.
a fucking nap, man.
Nah, open face is so much fun, man. Like I miss having people to play open face with.
Oh, you got you got action right here,
nah,
Conrad.
Fuck you.
Yeah, I think that was my introduction to you. Was through Jay Merce when he was like real heavy into the open face grind. So like 2014-ish, somewhere in that time frame.
Oh yeah, he was kind of part of the original crew when Fantasyland was created. We were in San Remo, I think, playing an EPT over there, and just ended up at some wine bar after the tournament playing old school open face, and just kind of as a group just came up with this idea.
How crazy is it that this pod went from Deeb and Wyman just hanging out to fucking Wyman's just the GOAT?
Oh,
I've known this forever. Why do you think I brought him?
I knew
my clout.
I knew the presence we were in.
My God.
You also have like no idea of the history of Deeb either. Like the pre-Black Friday. We don't have enough time on this show to really get into it. But like the Ted Fish Fry years, the Turning Stone years, like way
I'm
different
still
version.
Turning Stone legend. Just shipped the tournament last couple months ago.
Yeah,
there.
you should be real proud of that.
Hey,
Big guy.
that's why I got the prop bet.
So yeah, I understand. Like you step in
that's
shit
true.
a lot in your life, but some people, the rest of us has graduated out of Turning Stone.
My God, you won $200K eating chicken nuggets.
More than 200. It was like 400.
Well,
Okay.
because you crossbook,
Jesus
right?
Yeah. It was 300 was first. Yeah, in the crossbook.
Eating chicken nuggets, and then you found another million out of it?
So I basically, my whole career, I've tried to win more than first place because that was like the big thing online when you could shop and get more than first place. So I got more than first place in the tournament. But if I win the prop bet with Bill, I will win more than the whole prize pool of the tournament, which will never happen again.
That's actually pretty remarkable.
That's amazing.
Last thing I want to touch on with the weight loss bet. What is your schedule going to look like as far as training? Because I don't know. Well, actually, walk me through it. How much time are you putting into the day as far as like the regiment goes with your food prep, with training, with massage and recovery and everything else right now?
So I'm just going to, like I do my World Series schedule, fit as much of everything in as possible. I'm going to use pokermeals.com for food. They're not going to be set up for a few days, unfortunately. So Kim is going to offer to be helpful. I'm going to reach out to TJ, get some advice from him on some things. My workouts, I'm not sure if I'm going to do mornings, dinner breaks, at night. I don't know if I'm just using my trainer from home. Like I'm going to feel out everything. Like I'm a volume guy. I don't sit there and plan. I just kind of see what feels right. And so I'm treating this summer as I have the flexibility. My wife's been awesome. She's taking care of the kids. I'm not dealing with any of the bullshit at home. I'm focused on just the bet and just poker, and everything else will, fall by the wayside.
All right, man. I'll tell you what. If you want to do a 7 to 10 a.m. thing, I got you for sauna, trainer, and
yeah, I don't think that's good for me. I thought about that, and like when I talk to people who've worked out in the summer, the super early morning, because I'm going to be finishing at 2-3 o'clock, winding down.
No, it's impossible.
Yeah, I don't think that's optimal. I think end of the night, me and Dan always, the last few years, would always play open face a few hours. Like I'm always up a few hours. I'm so wired at the end of the night. That's when I'm hitting my peak performance of poker is the end of the night. Like I just hit another gear that no one else can get. And I think that's when I should be hitting the gym. Ben Mintz is coming out here. We're going to do a bunch of segments with Poker Go, calling Going Deeb with Mincy. We're going to do weight loss. We're going to do, food prep. We're going to do talking hands because, he has been out of the game for a long time. It's crazy, talk about the Ted's Fish Fry days. I remember playing against the Destroyer in the 50-50 when Full Tilt had that with like all the bonuses, and we battled a lot back in the day. And when Mincy got hired by Barstool, I was telling Dan, I was like, hey, look at this guy. Dan's like, oh yeah, I know him. He's like, we swapped in Mincy's like big claim to fame. Dan was deep with him in that tournament. So like the overlap of this crowd, like, all these people I get to know, like we've all interacted separately. Like that's what I always love about poker is you're some of your close friends, you don't know that they had a couple weeks they were hanging out with this person, or they have some experience and like, oh yeah, we're friends with them too. It's like, it's such a melting pot of experiences and knowledge and cultures. And it's the greatest advantage of poker is that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know Mincy was the Destroyer. I remember that screen name.
You didn't know that?
No, I had no idea. I thought that he was just like a Barstool guy, kind of like Nate.
No, he was a poker player first, and then like after Black Friday wasn't doing well live, and then got like his degree and went into sports media. So like he's an old school pre-Black Friday grinder with all of us.
Pretty sick.
What is Ted's first fish fry?
So that's my family business. We own 6 of them on upstate New York.
Okay.
It was my grandfather's name. He started about 75 years ago. Dan and Kim have both eaten there plenty of times. Great unhealthy food.
Ooh, I like it.
Yes.
That's why the diet.
So our fish fries are like, it's different than what most people think. So it's a strip of fish breaded on a hot dog roll with homemade chili or tartar.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. So,
yeah, but there's other seafood too that is so good.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, it's so good.
That sounds good.
Man, you lost me.
I'm in there.
you don't like fried seafood?
I do as a standalone. Like, just give me the fried meat and some ketchup to dip it in, and we're good.
Ketchup?
Yeah.
Shame
Easy.
on you.
At least I put cocktail, like get some spice with it.
I don't want any of that shit. I would rather. Actually, I have a really funny story. I've told it before, but I was in San Diego and I was visiting Dan O'Brien at the time when he lived there, and like there was a group of 13 of us or something. And he's like, "Oh, I want to go to this Michelin star place for lunch on the water." I'm like, "Okay." So we go there, and I'm like looking at the menu, and it's so bougie and like nothing that I really want. I'm just like, man, it's brunch. Like I just want some fucking eggs. But it's a seafood place, so I was like, okay, well, I'll try the fish and chips. Like, there's no way that this could be a miss. So I order the fish and chips. They bring it, and I'm looking, and there's like all these cocktail sauces and stuff, and I go, can I have some ketchup? And they're like, the chef does not recommend ketchup. And I go, I don't give a fuck. He's not eating it. I want some ketchup. And they were like, you should try this stuff over here. And it was like, it was basically like some sort of like Zaxby's sauce, like ketchup and mayo mixed or whatever. And I was like, I mean, you made this. Give me half of the ingredient. Just bring me the ketchup. And they're like, we can't do that. I was like, okay. So I like wait till the waitress leaves, and it's on this like strip, like almost a boardwalk or whatever. And there's a fast food joint right next door. I just like walk my happy ass over there, squirt out some Heinz 57, and come back.
I was really hoping you went and got some ketchup packets and brought them back and using your teeth to open it up in a restaurant.
I mean, if that's what it would have taken, that's what it would have taken. I was so mad. I'm like, fuck this Michelin star bullshit. Tell me how I'm going to eat my food. I just want some goddamn ketchup. Is that asking too much?
But you're 40 years old, Berkey, man. You got to progress the palate a little bit. I know you're
Progress
boiled
the palate. It's fried fucking fish. Let's not go overboard
Sauces
here.
are important.
Look, they served me French fries. If you're going to give me French fries and not offer me ketchup, you're doing it wrong. I don't care how high class and upscale your place is. Just
Matt,
seems
did they serve it
ridiculous.
on a flip flop?
No, it was not on a flip flop. You know what? I'm coming around to Landon. He should have been allowed to wear the cutoff fucking sweatshirt.
It's funny when you say that about Landon, because I have a few stories of going to Michelin restaurants in like baggy jeans when those were popular hoodies and a backwards hat. And like one of my favorite stories is doing that in Amsterdam to a Michelin star restaurant. And at first, like, are you at the right place? We're like, yeah. And we went there, and the staff loved us because we were like normal people who,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're used to so many high up people who like talk down the staff, and we became good friends with them. And they actually like got us a table the next night for a second meal where they just did whole tasting from the chef because the bond we made over how shitty we dress.
Yeah.
dope.
God bless. I've been kicked out of many of Vegas clubs because I showed up in shorts. What are you gonna do, man? You know, you don't have to conform. All right, let's talk about what everybody's actually tuning in for. This fucking $1 million cash game. It's wild. So
it's getting wild.
Well, I was gonna say it couldn't be more 3 different episodes. Like,
No, I agree.
It really, if you watch it, it's hard to believe it's the same venue, day apart with some of the same characters. You really see the dynamics change of a stream game with the particular characters added or removed.
yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that because the first session, I think people really expected there to be blood because it was a very deep buy-in, $1 million, playing 501k, and it was basically all Rex. And I don't think I'm insulting anybody by saying that, but by far the snuggest of all the days of play. And I don't think I think that game is very representative of what high stakes no limit looks like whenever it's mostly recreationals playing, right? A lot of multi-way flops, a lot of cold calling of 3 bets, not a ton of pre-flop aggression, racing the showdown, kind of a battle of the blue line, if you will, right? People want to speculate. They want to try to make big hands and then play big pots that way. And because of that, we didn't really see a lot of blood. The viewership was not happy, right? The viewers, they want blood. They want $1 million pots. They want to see some sort of monkey wrench thrown into there. What's your opinion as far as somebody who kind of understands that world a little bit, and having watched that episode with regard to what stream games should do with lineups like this.
So I think there was so much arguments of to play a stand-up game, to do the sit-down game, how to cap the straddles, to allow sleeper straddles. Like, they did so much to prevent action because they wanted to protect, like, hey, we have this great lineup, and if someone goes broke real quickly, we're going to have to replace them with a pro, and that changes the dynamic. So I think they were so focused on treating it like almost like a Poker After Dark, like sit and go. When, Poker After Dark used to do those cash games, it seemed that was the MO from Ryan and Nick. And they were like, we want these 8 guys to play together and be here for 8 hours. We don't want to have a bunch of new faces come in and out. So they really limited a lot of stuff. And I think people are also getting comfortable. It's like playing for those stakes on TV. A lot of those guys play that big or bigger regularly, but being on camera changed a different dynamic. And no one wanted to just punt. No one wanted to pull an Eric Persons on that show. And you saw that. And Keating was talking about, like, I hope the game's going to open up as the night goes on. And it opened up a little bit, but it really didn't have that driving force, because you need to really be a big game. You need 2 people raising and re-raising. Yep. It's like, if you have one person always pushing the action, everyone just limps to them, they raise, everyone calls. Me and you have been in 1,000 games where we're that guy of that game. Yep. And so you need that clash of multiple people to get the squeeze, re-squeeze, and then people are just getting in there in goofy spots with weak ranges. But you really didn't have that with that dynamic. And I think, the next 2 days, they definitely improved on that. And you saw more exciting hands, more exciting pre-flop stuff, more straddles. And it definitely they're finding their sea legs for that show for sure.
You just need a catalyst in the game. That's what you really just needed the first night.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of things that you touched on there that are very important. One, I think that you need some sort of dynamic between 2 people. Right. So just having Keating isn't enough. I think you need somebody that gives enough action regardless of who the action is going to. A facilitator, if you will, somebody that the money's going to flow through. And I think your point is valid. Like, that's always been my value add to these high stake games, is that, well, I'm going to VPIP a lot of hands and I'm going to raise and re-raise a lot no matter what, no matter who's in the game. I'm not worried about upsetting anybody. So if you insert someone like yourself, someone like me, somebody like Huss, somebody like Aussie Matt into that lineup with Keating, those 2 will naturally kind of butt heads to where everybody else can feel comfortable getting in the middle, right? And even somebody like, even if it's like me and JRB instead of like Keating and JRB, I think you see a little bit more of that, because for whatever reason, Keating has gotten himself to a point of being known as such a reckless gambler that I think people were starting to shy away and be afraid. And we saw Blank Check Ben limped King Jack suited under the gun on Keating's straddle, and then Keating obliged and opened, and he just folded, knowing that it was probably going to go 5 ways if he called, and he wasn't comfortable 4-betting, right? So it ended up being this weird dynamic where, imagine a scenario where Blank Check Ben, who says he's too rich to bend over and pick up $200,000 off the ground, is now limp folding King Jack suited because he doesn't want to play a 5-way pot versus Keating whenever they're, 1,000 big blinds effective. So I think, like, to that end, yeah, the dynamics need to be balanced a little bit more. Like, all the recreationals don't want the pros in the game because it poses a threat. But the truth of the matter is, it just really generates action. It's not even that they're often going to be the biggest winners in the game or take that much away from the other players. Even if you inserted a person in that game, like an Eric Person to butt heads with somebody, I think you see a lot more. I think the second takeaway is that game isn't meant to be televised. I've played in that specific lineup hundreds of times.
Must be nice.
It is. It is. And I'll tell you right now, like, it's just an infinitely better game when the cameras are not rolling. Just so much better. Like, there are so many people that have to be scrutinized based off of their hole cards being revealed, right? Like, they don't want to look foolish to their peers. They don't want to look foolish to whatever. They don't want to punt off whenever they're the head of a company or what have you. There's just like a million reasons why the cameras being on put extra pressure on each individual in that lineup, to the point where they can't just like play the way that they would play when the doors are locked, the cameras are off, and everybody's just kind of in a bit of a gambling mood. So I think, like, night one, I don't want to say it was drawing dead, but I think, like, the product we got is the product to expect, and that's fine. It's a pleasant viewing experience. It's just you're only going to see, you know, a couple hundred big blinds swing one way or the other.
I also want to say, like, I think the table talk was so lacking that day. I think
Agreed.
there wasn't. JRB was half asleep.
Yeah.
JRB is a great table dynamic. Like, we played a lot with him throughout the years. He's so entertaining, but he was so tired that the conversation just didn't happen. Tony G doesn't have the voice he used to have. Like, there wasn't someone leading. Like, as much as we hate on the high stakes poker, Berkey, you know, an airball game, whatever, Rob and Doug, like, there was so much conversation going on, people willing to engage and talk about different topics. There was barely any table talk that day. You know, I basically turned off the sound because it was just not worth it. I knew that nothing was being said of value. There were no needles. Everyone's being polite. Oh, you play so good. And everyone's giving compliments of the game. Like, you know, talk some shit. You know, and we saw that in the next few nights. You start talking shit, the viewership goes up, the game gets more entertaining, and then these battles that happen, we love to watch as fans.
Yeah. I mean, we're kind of skipping over night 2 to get to night 3.
We should skip over night 2.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I thought night 2 was a very welcome change. Like lowering the buy-in and adding a couple of those wild cards in Huss and Aussie Matt, I think like really, really ramped things up. We saw Charles lose nearly $1 million. And the action was a whole lot better. And I think that would have been the case whether they played a $500K buy-in or $1 million buy-in. So even though they did cut the buy-in in half, I don't necessarily think that that's what drew the blood. But night 3 was for sure the right mix.
Guys, I'm stuck. I'm sorry.
On?
How fucking rich do you have to be to not bend over and pick up 200K?
Really rich.
I mean, look, I'm not trying to take shots, but like, you're just full of shit. Nobody who's too rich to pick up 200K limp folds king jack suited.
I must have been too fat to pick up 200K before. Like, that's possible.
like I don't even know that I'm too rich to pick up a corner, but if I did feel that way, I'm still not limp folding king jack suited. You know what I mean? Like, if you're too rich for money, you don't conserve whenever the opportunity to, like, you know, spend for fun presents itself. So, like, I don't know, man.
I think it's all, here's the thing. So many people on the show, it's ego based. It's not financial based. And that, you know, causes the tightening up. They don't want to lose. They want to prove that they're better than people think they are. And that's so important for them.
I think that's mostly true, but I'll push back a little bit, man. I saw some assholes puckering last night. when that game turned to 1K, 2K, 4K, I saw some of the richest people in that game. Their assholes were puckering. Ben was constantly trying to lower the stakes, even though he got into the game late. He was desperately trying to keep Wesley and Airball around, which, no offense, but like, they were zeros to this lineup.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, but you understand the difference of playing 5-handed to 7-handed. Like, it's so bad that, you know, Ryan and Nick didn't push back on Wesley and Airball to be at the table more. Every time I've ever played on a stream show, I've always pushed for people, don't, like, if you got to do something, do it. But it just looks bad to constantly not be there. Like, people are signing up for a 7 or 8-handed game, and to play 4 and 5-handed, 1K, 2K, 4K is so different than playing 8-handed, like what they signed up for. Luckily, the few people left were actiony enough that they enjoyed that, and they were stuck in winning and didn't want to be the ones. But like, you can't allow your players, especially players like Airball, are talking about, I want to play this big, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then he just, all of a sudden, they're playing massive. He has a seat in the game finally after sitting out for 2 days, and he just walks away. And he's like,
I mean, look, call a spade, man. He was locking up the win. He was for sure.
We know that, but that's
tight money in that game.
But yeah, you won 400K, man. He lost so much more to you. Like,
Right.
If you're going to get even, that's your game. If you wanted to, you know, get your downswing over, you're in a good game in a good seat. Like, you have to direct position on Pav, who was awesome. Great action.
Pav
like,
was amazing.
Like, he was so, like, his squeezes, his frequencies were great. He picked some great hands. The King 9 check raise bluff was super great for Stanley. Like, he was a smart player. Like, I like those smart wrecks who are, I could tell he's kind of a field player looking for some live reads, like, but he's splashing. He's like, the stakes don't matter. That he was there to, like, prove to himself that he could compete, and he did a great job.
Yeah, I thought Pav was amazing, and I know people gave Huss a lot of shit because he was winning and calling him a fake action pro, but like, bro, he was there, and he would have been there 3-handed. He is not fake action. He just got the best of the card distribution.
Yeah, he played a lot of weekends and did a lot of good stuff. Like, I was very impressed, to the point where until you said stuff about him, I assumed he was a pro.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, he played really tough in spots, really sticky, but he also was like, recognized some sizing stuff and took advantage of that, like, and new board textures, and like, oh, this like he did a lot of really things well, but he also wasn't just trying to lock it up. Like, you know, one of the things whenever I play a big private game is I make sure I don't give the people stuck, you know, the way Keating talks about, a chance to win their money back.
Yeah.
And Huss said everything right. He's like, hey, I'm the one winning. I'm not going to change the stakes. You guys are stuck. Whatever you decide, I will go with. And watching that demeanor as opposed to the first night where Ben's arguing about, let's not do the stand-up game, let's do this, let's do that. Oh, we have to do this. Like,
keep it 7-handed.
Yeah,
Don't let these guys in.
Yeah, it's like you just be inclusive. Like, accept that you are the one who's gonna do well or whatever. You just want to make a better game. Like, let the crowd decide instead of bullying into what you want.
Right. Yeah, I think those points are really valid. And like, look, Huss might make a living from poker. I don't know. Whenever I qualify pro, I guess it's less about pro and amateur, and it's more about studied versus unstudied. And like,
so I'm not a pro to you.
Well, you have great instincts, Shaun.
I hope I do. I mean, if not, I'm the biggest outlier in poker
But
history.
yeah, like honestly, Stanley is for sure more studied than Huss.
Yeah.
It's not even remotely close.
I actually know because one of his good friends, we were playing together at the Win right when Stanley started going on the scene. They were like talking about solver stuff and how much work Stanley's done. It's like, I appreciate the people who are intelligent, want to be students of the game.
Yeah.
And guess what? They don't have the time that I had to spend 10 years playing millions of hands online.
Right.
Like, they have to speed it up. Their time is too valuable. So using solvers, but also you see some of the stuff where solvers struggle. Like, the queens to me seemed like an easy bet call. It's like you block most of his value. And he was so convinced he had Jack 10. I was like, I don't think the guy goes for a river check raise with Jack 10.
Right.
And that's like the instinctual stuff that you might realize that the polarized range, then you block value, that makes a better hand. I mean, first off, you always barrel the turn, but if you check back the turn, you always bet call the river.
Yeah. I think that's a really great point. Yesterday, I couldn't turn it off. I was trying so hard to work.
I was flying in. Me and Kim probably wondered what I was doing. I'm just sitting there watching poker on my phone. I almost said to her, I'm going to say it now in the pod, this is not normal. I hate watching poker, but
Same.
For somebody that hates it, he watched a lot of it.
We were traveling. There was not too much to do, but yeah. So let's get into the Rampage hand, because that's the one that I can't wait to talk about that one.
Yeah, that was definitely the key, where it was like I had it on in the background and I was actually in the process of getting work done. When that hand happened, though, it was done. Shut everything off. I was locked in. Like, we're here for the rest of the night. I watched the viewership just continue to climb, and I thought that like that was the type of game that was just going to be epic. It's going to be really difficult to top.
I'm going to sit out the rest of the stream, but I want them to keep the VPIP stat running for me.
It'll be the same.
Fuck you, Huss.
Well, again, I don't have my stats up, but
instead of not playing any hands over there.
One guy that is in the teens for VPIP is Wesley, for sure.
I'm just joking.
You tried to needle you, Wesley.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Doesn't work, right? Never.
Doesn't work?
Yeah, never. Fish doesn't know.
Rampage here.
Never two, never work.
Ace-7 of clubs.
I think I've
Hand's
seen
just
two.
going to call with queen.
I mean, I watch a lot
When
of...
I 5-bet with A5.
Going to play a trap and going to bring
60K,
Pav in
maybe
here. We
kill.
don't see what he
Maybe
has.
I get 6-bet by 180K. That's killed.
I was like screaming at the...
In that game, you 5-bet 60K.
And how
In this
about-
game, you 3-bet 60K.
Top set here for Hands,
I 4-bet
who
75.
just flat called and he checks. And Pav here,
15,000.
open-ended
Wesley, very juicy player.
with King 8.
Says NP.
Yeah.
Hands super under-repped. And Rampage is going to check raise here. This flop.
Yeah. He's not that player.
No, you are.
And Hands has got queen.
Big action.
Just with the flat call, pre.
1 of 1.
750K.
750K. Drinks bottle of scotch, 20K.
Rose gold interior.
Anytime you ask, what did you drink last night? I drank a bottle of scotch, it was 7K.
A glass.
Cool, okay.
We'll call.
Drinking Coronas, and we feel like bosses. We're like, yeah.
Everyone's cheering, we can afford Corona.
Pav's out of there. I mean, Rampage could have ace, king, king 9. I mean, he could have a lot of hands here. It's just a single raise pot. And a club comes off here on the turn. And Rampage picks up the nut flush draw. So nut flush draw, gutter to a king. Check raise the flop. As the pre-flop raiser.
At least I never slide. I don't leave my queens, ace queen, ace king.
Not like you. Wesley, you should come to Vegas and play with us. It's very a lot of action.
175.
And here comes the overbet here. 175, and Hands is just so under-repped
What do you
here.
do? That's a good bluff.
I can't imagine how he's not going to continue.
That's definitely a good bluff. I mean, it's still better than your poker bluff. I believe you. I believe your parents own a hedge fund. Not true? You own the hedge fund? Your hedge fund?
But again, we're dealing with much wider ranges than what would be expected here because Hands just
I own
flatted
the hedge fund. Woo!
the big blind versus the small blind open.
Yeah, I moved to Australia.
And there's a call, and this would be a disaster if a queen or a jack of clubs somehow rolled off the Rampage.
Look at that sweet baby.
The river here is a brick, and is Rampage going to go for it? There's absolutely no way that Rampage can know how strong. Hands all in! All in from Rampage! What heart! Unbelievable. 618,000 all in. For people that said that his stack might not be in play, he's answered that question. Holy smokes. Again, if you're coming into this hand in the middle, super unorthodox.
Yeah, he must hate me.
Blind versus blind. Hands just called pre-flop. And he's gonna fold, and Rampage gets it through. Oh my God. Unbelievable.
This kid has all the fucking heart, man. He just has all the heart.
I've been mad that I've only played with him once because he's from the Northeast, and a lot of my friends from Albany area, I played with him at Springfield, talk about when he was coming up, like, you know, I heard of him, and he's just doing great things, and he's a great winner. Was great on the show, and obviously, like, you see the advantage of selling action where he's willing to do that, you know. He probably took more of himself he should have, but I got respect for that guy, and obviously that was a great hand, and Hands, you know, kind of leveled himself thinking that he wasn't going to punt for that high.
I'll be honest with you. I think Rampage would have done the same thing if he had 100% of himself.
No shot.
I don't know, man. I feel like
I'm with Conrad.
I think once
I
he's
agree.
at the table, it's different. Like, you're at the table, the money's on the table, and this is what's going on. I'm about 100% sure he would have pulled the same move.
Assuming he check raise flop. Like, once you check raise flop, I just think you run it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been in that spot where I have way too much of myself, and I told myself I'm going to play conservatively today, and we're just going to take the good spots, and then you find yourself in a check raise on the flop, and it's like, well, I have ace king, and he fucking doesn't. So here we go. You know.
Well, clearly, if he has queens, he has ace king. Like
that's that's kind of the wild thing. You know, from Rampage's side, obviously Rampage would much rather have like king 8 of clubs, for example, would be a way better bluffing candidate. Even ace 9 of clubs will be infinitely better because you expect hands to have a fair amount of king 9 suited. But the dynamic of this is actually like pretty fascinating because initially I thought it was just blind versus blind and Rampage had opened. And I was like, oh, this is so stinky. Like, this line doesn't make a ton of sense if they're playing a 3-bet pot here because he would never flat ace king. I just like missed all the pre-flop, and I was like, oh my God, this is such a punt because A, blind versus blind in an ante-game, like Rampage just shouldn't be opening very much. And then B, he would just never flat a 3-bet very often with ace king. Like, you're never getting this through. Queens is snapping your dick off. Like, GG, young man. Well done. You have all the heart, but like, this is over. Then I realized it was actually a straddled pot, and it was just a 3-way single raise pot. And I'm like, oh man, I like this line so much more.
See, I don't know. You play these stakes more than me and these stack depth, but I'm just not I don't have a high check raising frequency on that board because I think your opponents are going to check back so many hands on flop. Like, I mean, hands check set of queens on Queen Jack 10. So, like, if they're checking that high up in their range, your opportunity to check raise, and obviously was not checking, planning on check raising, but once Pav bets and Pav's so splashy, like, he just like, oh, I'm going to try to, you know, get him to fold one pair in a straight draw by the end or whatever. But, like, when hands cold called, man, I don't know if I'm continuing on that turn.
Well, the thing is that, and yeah, your read of his cold call is what's scary, I guess. But you pretty much just put him on Jack 10 specifically. Like, oh, he just has bottom 2, and I'm just gonna fucking get him off it. Because you could never expect him to have sets here, right? Like, you just assume Queens, Jacks, and 10s all 3-bet pre. And I disagree a bit with the check raising frequency because on that texture, any c-bet into 2 people is rather polarizing. It's like, of course, you have all the ace king and they have none, but because of that, now your hands that you want to get like 2 streets of value with, like king queen type of holdings, just kind of start to underperform because they over funnel, right? And it's not like you can just YOLO it with all of your nothing because they touch this board a lot with king X, and they touch this board a lot with like ace plus pair and things like that. So it's this weird conundrum where when you have hands that really want to generate folds like 7 high or even under pairs, they just have natural continues. And then when you have hands that are pretty strong value hand or value candidates, I guess, they actually are the ones holding a lot of dick in those situations. They're just kind of forced to fold. So I think like what ultimately happens on this board when you're out of position 3 ways is it reduces to a 2-street game, and you do play a lot of check and you check through and then start to levy big bets on the turn. And when that doesn't happen, you know that you found them in that pretty equitable region where they have like king plus pair or 2 pair type of holdings, and you can really build the pot, especially this deep. Like, that's the beauty of, what were they, 1,000 plus big blinds deep to begin this hand?
Well, 500 because of the straddle, but yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, sorry. So there was a straddle. But yeah, even still, the SPR, I think, going into post flop here was like, what
20
pot was like 30,000.
Yeah, 30,000
free,
flop. So 20.
So like 30-ish, roughly 30. Yeah, 33 SPR. That's fucking massive, right? So like even with top 2, even with Hans's hand of top set, which we could never expect to be in there, you're in the fucking pressure cooker, man. When you face 3, well, in this case, 4 streets of aggression, it's tough. But like, he just has no calls. He has no calls in the spot that aren't king 9 or better. Maybe I guess 8-9.
But is it weird that I would rather call with 3 queens than 8-9?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
8-9. I mean, maybe not though. Maybe not, because a lot of his bluffs should be coming from 9x, knowing that you're capped at king 9, right? So yeah, maybe not.
Like, this is where like theoretical people, since I don't study the game, it's like, you know, I think that he has some like queen X hands he might be turning a bluff, or, you know, 10-9 of diamonds. Like, there's so many combo draws on that board.
Yeah.
That anytime I have a 9 or 8, I prevent some of those combo draws.
Especially if your thought process is, I don't think he should be checking a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Like, once you go down that rabbit hole, then yeah, you start to funnel him into, well, what hands are very comfortable checking? And then once they see a bet come from the 3rd position, want to leverage out the middle guy, right? Because now once you put him into that tight little box, your logic makes a ton of sense. Like, top set is just the absolute nuts. And you want to unblock all of his bluffs in that situation, which in that case you clearly would. I think regardless, like, you know, you under-repped your hand so much. Like,
yeah,
Queen's just
you have a
go,
bluff
baby.
catcher, but like, you know, Rampage said I'm selling action to punt. Like, I believe people, and I believe that he was going to go in there, and he's a fighter for pots, which is a great mentality to have. But you also got to know that he's not the type to give up. Clearly, he didn't give up with his hand. So, you know, you just got to say, tap the table if he was dealt a better hand and you got coolered.
I think that brings up an interesting discussion. So there's been a lot of back and forth on Twitter between Rob and Doug, as well as myself and Person at different stages throughout the airball. And then most notably just airball, always talking about wanting people to play their own money. Blank Check Ben also always talking about how, you know, their biggest advantage is that they play their own money. And if they force pros to play their own money, then, you know, they could neutralize that. And I actually think that this is a good example as to why that's not true. Like, yes, we know Rampage sold. Yes, we know he laid off risk. But we also know that Rampage for sure has more of his net worth at stake than anyone else in that game.
Except maybe Aussie Matt. the day
Right.
before.
Yes. Correct. And over those 3 days, knowing that to be true, what I found to be very clear is that everybody talking about playing their own money is relatively scared. The reason why they want everyone to play their own money is so that they can feel comfortable folding the second nuts, right? If everybody's playing their own money, then they know nobody ever bluffs. And now all of a sudden they're very comfortable in making very difficult folds rather than having to be put into situations where they can potentially have to hero call off, because now somebody that would otherwise be scared is clearly fearless. It's not because they're going to put people in the pressure cooker. I didn't see any of that from Ben, from Rob, from Airball. One hand Airball versus JRB, he took a pretty erratic line where he put 200K in on the river, but they were still, 2 pots, 3 pots.
Well, JRB also had made so many folds. Like, Airball kept going back. He was getting hands. JRB folded top pair to like 4 Keating check raises.
Exactly.
Where Keating had air. So, like, JRB seemed
he was
like
the guy
scared
to go
money.
after.
Yeah, like, he was just not going to make that huge call.
Which again doubles down. He's not playing his own money, right? Like, I don't think that there's really much to this narrative of like, oh, if you played your own money, then you'd be scared, and I could outmaneuver you as a passionate wreck or whatever. I mean, we saw a situation where Rob had the second nut full house. He had the absolute nuts on the turn, chose not to check raise there. Had the second nuts on the river. Wasn't even considered check raising. His decision was between check folding and check calling. And he was mad at himself for check calling 110% pot. So it's like, if you truly are down that rabbit hole of when I hold the second nut full house, where full houses are a very difficult hand to make, I don't even think I'm good facing a bet. There's no fucking way we're seeing these guys run it with like a random blocker. There's no way we're going to see the 3x pot over bet jam with the naked flush card in their hand and things like that. I just think it's like a whole lot of wanting to kind of put their thumb on the head of pros and or kind of like trample them down a little bit and say like, look, this is our arena. You should feel welcome that you're even allowed to be considered in it. And in order to keep you out even further, we're going to ask you to play 100% of yourself in any of these situations.
So I love this comment from Luis Brazil God, who I know you play with a few times.
Yep.
He's great.
Yep.
We had a lot of fun down in Texas. And he's like, the weirdest thing to him being from the investment world is everyone in the investment world takes outside money. Why do poker players get shamed for doing that when every other industry that deals with large sums and large deals, they take in outside capital?
Yeah.
Why do these businessmen who have raised and split equity and sold at valuations and done all these things, why do we get shamed because we're gambling for it while their businesses are also gambling and they're also taking less risk and taking a free roll?
And also, it's not like we've never sat case money. Those of us that are still here are survivors. Like, we have the biggest amount of survivorship bias. We've all sat case money and gone broke.
I have 4 different times in my first 2-3 years online before Conrad even knew about poker, where my account was all in on PokerStars and I won the $10 rebuy or some other tournament and ran the roll up or used my FPP points to buy into a W Coop 1K that I final tabled and got a roll back together. Like, we've all done that early in our career, and that fear is why, when we've talked about your stuff with Airball, like taking so much of yourself, like these are the stakes I'm comfortable at. I can't go broke at this stage of my career. It's not worth it to go back to grind.
Right.
Like, I'm at this point, I'm at an age where I'm thinking about retirement and other investments. Like, why would I go all in for this small of an edge?
Right.
Like, we can't 100x that you can like in a business that you can go all in on.
Exactly.
We can like 3x at best if you have your bankroll on the table.
Yeah, that's precisely it. So it's like these spots are obviously fantastic for us as professionals, but I think your description of what the upside is, what the ceiling is, it's so relatively low compared to outside endeavors that are probably even more conservative, to be honest, right? Like, if we compared sitting in the $1 million cash game with 100% of yourself, where maybe like your risk of ruin is like, I don't know, 40%, something like that, versus putting 100% of your liquidity in Bitcoin, which we know to be an extremely volatile asset. Upside is still probably higher on Bitcoin, even in the relative short term. If you compared like 1 year versus like, one session, something along those lines. So I think that, yeah, I mean, like, whatever, let them take their shots. It's fine. I think Doug's going to learn firsthand how the angry mob deals with transparency
Him and Rob, I mean, we all can't wait to see that again.
Yeah.
I mean, their banter is great. They're shit talking. And I love Doug saying that I'm going to go into today and by the end of the day, either be the biggest winner or biggest loser in Hustler stream history.
Yeah.
And like, I took a very small piece of Doug. I asked last minute for it, got it. I'm so hyped because I love when Doug says that FU mode and is going to put people in spots. Like, we played so many Poker Night episodes where Doug just V-pipped a crazy amount, 3-bet like 30%, 4-bet like 15%. He just took every spot with the most garbage hands. But man, is it so much fun to play in that dynamic. And I really hope that the other people are ready to go to battle because this is going to be by far their biggest show, I think, today.
Can I make a prediction?
He's going to be the biggest loser?
No, I think it's going to fall flat.
Really?
I don't think he's going to have a sparring partner in that lineup.
I don't know who's the whole lineup today.
Him, Airball,
Hands,
Rob, Mariano, Rob.
You don't think Mariano will go for it?
No.
I mean, he's not a sparring partner. He just has it.
Yeah.
I've only seen a few episodes. He obviously cooled the shit out of everyone, but I feel like he's also a showman, and maybe he might just say, "Fuck it, I'm going to go for it."
If Huss is there, I think that's your only shot.
Well, Huss being up what he is, he's gonna.
But I don't think they're gonna let him play.
Really?
He's up $2 million.
Who cares?
That
He's
would be
great for the
absurd.
show.
I agree.
That would be absurd if they don't
I
let him play.
wholeheartedly agree. I don't think that he's going to get in. And I don't know this for sure, but I think today's a very pro-heavy lineup. I don't think anybody's going to spar with Doug. I think he's going to have the highest VPIP. I think he's going to have the highest 3-bet percentage. I think he's going to have, top of the charts with all this stuff. And I think like the swings are going to be a couple 100,000. I think we're going to see a lot of Friday revisited. I think Airball is going to VPIP like 20.
I'll make a small wager with you that the biggest winner or loser is $1 million in the game.
Okay. Yeah.
How much you want to do it for?
Whatever. You tell me.
1,000.
Perfect.
All right.
Done.
So it looks like the lineup is today's 29th, right? Polk, Wesley. Get Wesley out of there.
How does Wesley get a seat over Huss? Come on.
That's absurd. So it's only 4 names. It's Polk, Wesley, Hands, and Rob Young.
Okay. Yeah. And then I think
I heard Durr was mentioned by Airball as a possibility. I think Airball and Doug getting into it would be pretty fun. The banter.
I expect Airball to be a shell of himself.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, what we saw yesterday in what I would deem to be a relatively action-packed game where he VPIP'd nothing, played 20%. Like that's the Airball that I know. I've been calling him a fake action pro since day one. Like that was a game where he looked around, he goes, I don't really have a target. Tony G left, JRB's not here. Who am I going after? Everybody thinks Hands is very good. Rampage is obviously very capable. Huss was sun running and is obviously a decent player on his own. He had Pav to his right, but Pav also had like 400,000.
And he was just 3-betting a ton. Like,
yeah.
What is Airball doing folding jacks? Like,
insane,
the guy had
bro.
3-bet like 20 hands already. It was like 40K. You're $1 million deep. Like, yeah, your hands kind of face up calling, but doesn't matter. You just
do
realize
something.
Your equity.
Just do something.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like you're on TV with jacks and $1 million effective.
And
like,
you snap
just do
fold. You don't
something.
even think about it. Like,
I'm telling you, he wants to play good. Like
I wish they just zoomed in on his face when it came Ace Jack X. Like,
they did.
Oh, they did. Okay.
His eyes were bugging. But yeah, like when in those games where the spots aren't obvious, right? They become very obvious to Doug. Like Doug is a consummate pro, and it doesn't matter what lineup you roll out at these stakes. It's just going to be very profitable for him. So he's not going to give a shit. He's not going to alter the way he plays at all. He's just going to get in there and mix. And I think that like you're just going to see a lot of what we saw in high stakes poker. That game was very tight. Like I didn't think it was unwatchable because of the banter. Don't get me wrong. Like the table
You're
talk.
crazy to say that.
What?
That was not unwatchable for the banter. It was so loud.
No, I agree with you. I agree with that. But I'm saying specifically like that wouldn't have been what turned me off. Being a part of the game, I thought it was a snooze fest. Like I just thought it was so full of fake action and drama, and then like nothing came to head. There was no, we got to get into this, but there was no Huss Wesley dynamic, which was exactly what was expected. Like, the way it was built up with me versus Airball, me versus Lynn, me versus Eric, me versus Doug. It was supposed to be, all of this back and forth, all of this banter, which to be fair, I wasn't exactly going to be a willing participant in, but at least, it could have been there. It never happened. And then on top of that, the hands were just so fucking boring. Like nobody was really getting after it. Doug obviously took a bath because he was trying to, play correct, theoretically correct, and be aggressive in all the right nodes. And he's just running into the nuts because nobody's countering. Nobody's sparring with him. Last night, the Huss Wesley dynamic, and the best part is that it was literally just born out of a guy playing fucking tight.
Well, that's some of the best things. Like, I'm sure you've been like me. Maybe you're not as confrontational.
And I'd love to hurt him physically, but
Oh my God. Take it easy, buddy.
I guess financially is an option.
financially it's not. He has to play hands.
Card, please.
Hell.
Bro, my man just said I.
You know, he's a nice guy. He's really enjoyable. Like, he was chatty, but it just rubbed me such the wrong way to be in such a dream spot versus, you know, fish on a platter and then be sitting there V-pipping like 9%. I gave him so much money just trying to force him into action.
So it's funny because when I was down in Houston, me and Marcus were talking, and Marcus talked about all the shit that Ralph would do, and he's like, he would sit there short by, and I would get blackout drunk, and then he would all of a sudden cover me and just wait for the nuts. Like,
bro, this happened. This blow up, it was wild. It was like a month ago, and we had been playing all day. There were 2 games, and you know, eventually it consolidated into 1. And Marcus just decided Darkus was coming out, and he just starts getting ripped. And the game's not good. It's like all pros, like 9 pros. And Ralph all day long had like 10K in front of him, you know, just kind of, you know, doing his thing. And he's immediately, he got sat to Marcus's left. Suddenly I look up and he has a fucking 100,000 in front of him. I'm like, holy shit, what the?
Like, you got to be coy with it a little bit. Like, that's just, there's no shame of doing that. Like, they got to be ridiculed by the other pros. Like,
I mean, to be fair, like, it worked out in his benefit. Marcus was giving him all the wrong action. Like, just, I mean, betting Jack 4 off and shit, like just getting after it, you know?
Me and him had a lot of fun. We played some quite large pots at 1-3 no limit down in Texas.
Yeah, as you should.
We were 10K deep. How could you not?
Right, of course. Exactly. And that's I think whenever you get that's why I say you need a sparring partner in these types of games, because largely speaking, all of the people that make the game good are there to be kind of background noise or kind of bystanders, if you will. They want to see blood between the 2 people that are making the most money in the game to begin with, and then they just want to interject themselves as they see fit. They want to get a big hand in the middle of a raise re-raise spot, you know, get involved in some capacity. They need the money to flow through the people who are facilitating action so that they can get in there, feel comfortable bluff catching in certain situations, making the nuts and trapping. You know, we even saw it with Tony G where he flopped the nut straight versus Stanley and never put a raise in. You know, Ace Deuce 3 Rainbow has 5-4.
There was a flush draw on the flop.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
And a backdoor Jack 10 coming in as the nuts. And by the time it was all said and done, he faces an overbet on the river, and he's like, I guess I just have a bluff catcher. You know what I mean? And that's fine. There's nothing
he raised
wrong
the
with
river.
that. No.
Yes, he raised to 500K.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he raised the river to 500K.
Oh, I must have not been paying close attention.
No, he made it 500K.
Oh, okay, and Stanley just snap fold.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was so quick, so the graphics I don't think caught it.
That's
but
fair.
I had the volume on, and so yeah, he raised 500K on the river.
Okay, yeah,
and then
that's
showed
fair.
one card and showed the 4 or 5, whatever.
Sure.
And everyone knew what he had.
Yeah. Okay, that's great, and that's what should be happening. The only point I was making about not raising was just that, you know, sometimes the stack to pot ratio is still so deep that you hate to consider getting jammed on if you do raise in the spot. But nevertheless, like, ultimately that's what's going to make people who make the game good feel comfortable, is knowing that there's enough action around them that they don't have to be the ones generating it. When we were playing the high stakes poker lineups that were like less tough, Rob was trying really hard to be the facilitator of action. And it's just like, it was what it was, you know, like if he ran good, it was going to be good for the game because he was in the mix and everything else. But if he ran bad, then he just like put it on somebody else to kind of facilitate the action. And he's a good table talker, so it's kind of okay. And that's probably my biggest defense of why I think Wesley is such a net negative for the stream and why Airball actually is good. Even though I think like he's full of shit when it comes to playing higher, he's full of shit about covering everybody, he's full of shit about being this loose action pro and everything else that Airball promotes. I think he's just completely full of shit on. But he's very loudly full of shit, and that brings in eyeballs. Wesley's also full of shit and doesn't say a word. So outside of him being willing to actually get into a fight with Huss at the table, bro, he said, "Come at me, motherfucker."
Wesley said that?
Bro, he looked him right in the face. He goes, "Fucking punch me."
I mean, that's the only guy who's actually smaller than Wesley. So he found his one target. He might be able to win the physical fight.
Huss is like a Tasmanian devil. I like him in that side.
I mean, yeah. Whoever described him as a very young Mr. Bean on one of the spaces was, once they said that, I grew up loving Mr. Bean, and that is the perfect thing. And he just has that goofy little like head bobble, and like he was great for the show. And I think that he's someone who deserves a seat, and he was great action, and he was a gracious winner. He said, like I said earlier, he said all the right things, and I thought he was a guy that I would love to have at the table, whether he's winning or not, and that's what you want out of a game.
Was there any point where you thought that the table talk went overboard between those two?
I was on a flight, so I didn't have the best volume, but no, I think that like the guys giving action, the guys winning, should be calling out the snipers of the game, who are just sitting there, and then when they walk away and leave forever, like berate them. And, Ben kind of uses a point to try to kick the game down, try to like use them as the excuse. But do you think also Ben wanted to be a little bit deeper so he could be more comfortable with some of the spots he was in?
Yeah,
like
he was
getting
bleeding
3-bets
so
at 50K
fast.
every hand. Like he was down like 400K in like 40 minutes. That's
what I'm saying. Like his asshole puckered at 1K, 2K, 4K. It puckered, man.
Who doesn't at those stakes?
I mean, people who regularly play those stakes.
There's not too many people who regularly play those stakes.
You'd be surprised. You would be surprised. Not on TV though. Yeah, you're right. It's going to be like Rick Solomon would have been an amazing addition to this.
I'm amazed Rick didn't get a seat when Jared B was in the lineup.
He was offered. I think that he's out of town for a wedding, from what I heard on the stream. But yeah, like the Bob Safai game is regularly 1K, 2K, 4K, and those guys are all fucking sick animals, and they shouldn't be on TV, to be quite honest. Because it'll just ruin the allure of what's going on behind closed doors.
Once you expose that, like that's what Keating's talked about. Some of if his games ever got streamed, you can't compete with that. There's nothing that will play those stakes, that type of action, that type of stuff, the straddles and the dark raises and the crazy.
Everybody just changes too. Everybody in the lineup just changes, and they're too hyper aware of the fact that cameras are on. In my opinion, yesterday's dynamic was one of the most watchable I've seen. Rampage having all the heart in that situation was absolute must-see TV. I thought that the banter and the fighting between Wes and Huss was just absolutely incredible. I do think that there's a case to be made for Wes feeling like, I guess, a bit picked on, but I don't know. I mean, we're all adults.
What poker game have you come where the biggest nit isn't picked on? Every single game I play, whoever's the tightest person, someone makes fun of them.
As they should be.
That's like you. Have you been in a game where the biggest nit is not made fun of?
Bro, I've been called a nit in games.
You were nit when we played in Bahamas, by the way.
Fuck you.
Wait.
I played every hand.
No, me and Marcus were both very drunk, but we both agreed that's the tightest we ever seen you play.
It's funny because I left saying Marcus was tight until he got drunk.
I was not tight at any point.
I mean, you guys are insane.
We have some fun, man. I was there to let loose. I don't get to play those stakes regularly. I wanted to have fun, and I enjoyed myself. It was a great time.
I had a blast, obviously. I won all the money. But I think that, I mean, like, look, the times that I get accused of being a nit, I just always find it to be hilarious. And those are ribs that, like, I'm very happy to take.
You also had a bad seat. Like, you had the action guy to your left, and you didn't want to 3-bet and 4-bet and shut him out. Like, I know that was one of your
if you're
ideas.
saying I was tight in the sense that I wasn't playing super. I just called a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right, 100%. Like I wasn't trying to.
The Berkey I've heard is, I was like, we're gonna get pre-flop wars. This is gonna be fun. Like it's like a tournament with super deep stack cash.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just like your 3-bet and 4-bet frequency was like very low.
I mean, honestly, that's much closer to my MO. Like I've always just, again, going back to like the value that I felt like I added to those games, it was never going to be that I'm a hyper aggro pre, because I played in games where I didn't have that sparring partner and I wanted people to feel comfortable seeing 3. Like the majority of the VIPs in the game are just there to kind of see a flop and see if they can hit something. So very, very early on in getting to play in Ivy's room, it was clear to me that like if you get into the double digits of 3-bet percentage, you're gonna get fucking kicked out really quickly.
So I got in that game one time and I was 3-betting a ton and I just had queens plus ace king every time. I showed every time. I'm like, I'm not trying to abuse you guys. Like,
yeah.
I had it every single time and I showed them and they were all laughing like, JRB won so much money in your seat. And I'm like, I'm not picking on you guys. I just have it again and again. Because like I didn't want to have that image of me running them over pre-flop.
Exactly.
Like I was aware that that's not the image you want to have.
The precursor to me getting in there was Benba telling me that he had seats originally and they wouldn't let him raise pre-flop.
Ben deserved not to raise pre-flop. That game when he first got in.
I know.
I mean, I was so mad I never had a piece of that.
It was wild. But like, yeah, so they had a rule where it's like, okay, you can play with us, but you can only limp. So it's just like, if I know that going in, I'm certainly not going to like come out and just be a terror and just make somebody feel like they're isolated, especially like whoever draws my right. It's not really going to matter. I'm just going to be, it's going to be them. You know what I mean? And I saw Marcus getting like pretty ripped. I didn't want to feel like the guy who was just ISOing him and just being like, okay, this guy's really drunk. I'm going to take advantage of my seat position on him and just like 3-bet every fucking time he puts money in the middle. It's like, yeah, let's all have a party.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to tonight. Is there also going to be a game tomorrow, do you think?
I think it was 5 days, so there should be one tomorrow.
Okay.
There's one scheduled on YouTube.
Well, I guess we'll be playing the 25K and sweating it from the rail.
Do you want to make any side bets in the 25K?
No. No.
I wouldn't side bet against you, dude. I have a feeling. I said it when you started the weight loss bet. I have a feeling you're going to crush, and then you immediately final tabled the lodge or whatever you did. I have a feeling you have a good summer.
I feel like you lost money in that series.
The lodge?
No, hell no.
Oh, I just remember you being in for like 5 or 6 bullets in the one that you won. I figured that was just.
I was in for 6 bullets. The one I won like 24 bullets effectively, and then the main I was in for 7 bullets and got like 25 back.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you final tabled that as well.
Yeah. I mean, I played 3 events. One of the third one I played that I didn't cash was the 10K 6 max that I max late regged and had 12 blinds, was in and out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a great trip, and then I won a bunch of money in Houston. I mean, the action in Texas is insane. May move down there and may not. Yeah. Some crazy stuff going on. But it's a great opportunity for poker. There's so much new companies coming in doing different things, and I'm just happy to be a part of it and watch the game grow. I mean, we see the numbers of Hustler. We see other great numbers of other streams. World Series coming at a great time. We're going to break every record at the World Series they've ever had.
I agree.
And it's just showing how strong poker is right now.
I was about to end the show, but I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up. Let's spend like 5 minutes or so and just walk me through this Vertucci beef. I can't see any of it because he has me blocked. But I just saw that I had 87 mentions. Half of them were you, and half of them were somebody who has me blocked.
So yeah, I made a few comments over the last few nights about the game and some of the things I didn't like. And Nick just Rob responded, and Nick said something about like, thanks for putting this two-faced shitbag in his place or something. And I assumed he was talking to you. And like then he said he was talking to me, and I was like, dude, I like you and I like what you guys are doing for the show, but I've been a part of streams for longer than you have. I was on the first Poker Night in America. I was involved. Like, they were the show for the first 5 years. There was no competition out of the real stream games of those stakes. And we had an amazing episode after amazing episode and great lineups. And so I get this industry. Like, we didn't play as big as they do in Hustler, but we also were traveling from stop to stop. You know how hard it is to get pros or big name people to fly out to, like, where were we? Like, what's that? Not Cherokee. What's the shitty little
Choctaw?
Choctaw. Like, how hard it is to get people to go to Choctaw and try to get Jennifer Tilly to go there and, like, other names. Like, it was so much harder to coordinate where people don't live around there, or it's not a major city to go to. Like, they only had one Vegas show. Florida was like the most popular one. We would do Turning Stone, AC. It was so much harder to get a regular crowd of people because you're popping it up for 3-4 days, filming 2 of the days, and someone to fly in for that. It's just not going to happen. Where LA has so much more flexibility. People are in town. People live there. There's a lot of money there. So like they have that benefit of being in that market.
What was your overall criticism?
I thought Airball and Wesley should have not gotten seats, and if they did get seats, they should have been berated for walking away so much.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to fill the game back up to 8-handed and shut out Doug and Rob at the same time, whatever. Like you got to make sure the people who bought in that day are there.
Yeah.
It's like these guys are forced to play 4-handed. If there was a different crowd, the game would have broke.
Yeah.
I've been a part of a few stream games, and probably you have been as well, where once a few people die and you're playing 4-handed and someone quits, then there's just no stream.
Right. Yeah.
Imagine if those guys are like, okay, if Pav gets stacked and all of a sudden the game breaks
right,
while they're walking, like that's just terrible for them, for production. Like if they're so loyal to the show and they've done so much and they've made so much money on the show, they need to be there and represent. And you want to complain about not being in the game for the first 2 days, you get in. I would not even try to go to the bathroom during that game.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not peeing. I'm sitting there at the table, not drinking any water. Like I'm there to put on the show and be a part of the game. Why am I walking out to do a victory lap and just walk around and say, hey, I got $1 million on the table. Cool, look at me. Let's have a drink and let's do an interview with Veronica and Joey on the couch. Like,
that game should have been the biggest spot of Airball's streaming career. Completely agree with that. And not only was he walking a lot, but I was shocked to see him rack up at midnight.
Yeah, I saw this tweet. My bad. I saw this tweet that Seaver wrote. He said, "Another day of a ton of people tuning into another boring stream. While in Bobby's room, there was almost 2 separate fistfights. Be the change you want to see in the world." And Vertucci just comments on it. The question is why? Just why? My question is, why the fuck are you commenting on this?
Hey, here's the thing. What goes on in Bobby's room, the mixed crowd, are way more vicious. You want to talk about needles? Like, when I play on stream, it's easy going. When you play a live mixed game with, like, the East Coast people or some Vegas regs, they're destroying you every time. There is no minute where it's not a fucking needle, and everything has a backhand compliment. Like, that community, because it's limit game, there's a lot more conversation, and the people are more outgoing in general than you will see in, like, a no-limit game.
It's just also the old school. Like,
well, there's a good mix. Like there's Monet, Shulman, Seaver, Kruk. Like there's a bunch of great guys. Then you got Aaron Katz and the other crowd and fucking Opie. I mean,
there's some different degrees of old school though, because like I kind of agree with Conrad. The Ivy Room game that I played in was the exact same. It was whoever was winning was the enemy. Whoever was losing was an open target. Like nobody, and I mean nobody, has taken more than JRB. I've seen this man down to his last penny.
I've seen him get stacked 4 times for his bankroll.
Yeah, just
4 different times.
And while it happens, like the entire table enjoy. There was a time where he was like on case money, buried to the fucking gills, and one of the VIPs who was in town was just like, "Oh my god, I completely forgot. There's this highlight reel of JRB getting stacked on YouTube. You guys have to see it." And he starts playing it for everybody. He goes, "Here's my favorite one. Here's my favorite one." And it's the one from the World Series.
Where he thought the guy was
the
drunk
ace
dead.
queen.
Yeah.
And now for hours, everybody's just looking at him going, "Bye-bye." I mean, it was brutal. There's just no compassion.
I got to tell my favorite JRB going broke ones. He had his last 10K. We were playing 2-4 mixed. Ben Lamb was in the game, Crazy Mike, myself, maybe a Binger, who I don't know who the whole lineup was. But we play a pot where it's like single raise, PLO, it's 100, 10K cap, whatever. It's Jack 7-3, all hearts. I lead some bullshit 2-pair hand. Ben cold call, or Ben raises. JRB like repots all in. But he has the nuts, no fucking question. Ben sticks it in and goes, "Do you want to chop it?" He's like, "You have the nuts, right?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Okay, it's a flip." He's like, "What do you mean it's a flip?" He's like, "I got, full wrap and a flush draw." And he's like, "I have the nut flush." And Ben misread the board.
Oh, okay.
So Ben is super tilted that he misread the board, and because he just thought he was against top set. And so he realized he has like no equity. He has like a gut shot straight flush draw. And he's like, "Fuck it, run it once." And he just turns the fucking straight flush. And Crazy Mike goes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of hearts, straight flush. And he gets up and high fives Ben, and JRB just fucking throws his hands over his head, and we've all seen him look where he just stares at the felt when it's fucking empty in front of him in his fucking seat 1 of Ivy's room, and he's just waiting for his next check for his ambassador thing to come in and try to run it back up. It was so vicious. And it had to be I've told him, I've watched the comedy of errors. For him to get stacked that hand, Ben Lamb is one of the sharpest live players. For him to misread a board,
right.
He wasn't drunk. It was, not super late at night.
Yeah.
It's like, for all that shit to go wrong and then him to get one out, it's just so fucking brutal. I felt so bad for him. I'm happy to see him, back in big games. I hope he, stays in money. I know it's tough for him. But, I root him well because he does mean well, and he's so entertaining to play with.
He's the best.
I love playing with him. I know when you guys are talking, you're trying to tell stories about how you helped him win his condo that game. That was a great story.
It was the most insane fucking thing. The sequence of events that had to take place that day were so insane that it was a minor bad beat for me. Not only did I lose $500,000 in the game, but then I miss out on 3 days of playing with the chairman. But on top of that, Chairman immediately made it $1 million buy-in. So JRB's priced out, but he had happened to run up $100K to $800 and basically said, please make an exception for me. I don't want to put $200 more on. And the chairman goes, okay. And then 3 days later, he just emerges 5.5 million victorious. Suddenly he's a free man, buys a condo, he's playing on his own dime.
The Bentley he got, he did everything.
He's just balling out. I mean, he embodies broke living JRB. He lives the fucking life. He's about it.
Yeah, it's impressive. You got respect for that grind, and you see how exhausted he is. He's playing 24/7.
100%.
He's running his game, playing a game. He's flying around. He is living a crazy lifestyle. Now he's got, I don't know if he has a third kid yet.
3 kids.
He has 3 kids yet. Yeah. The twins, that's so fucking tough, but I have so much respect for that ability to work so hard for your family and to be such a fun-loving degenerate. He is, every pro should aspire to be JRB.
Yeah, honestly, there will be endless stories about JRB for years and years to come. I'm so happy that I was privy to this window of time where I got to kind of have my own experience with it, and I hope I have more.
I got another funny JRB story that he loves to tell. So JRB is the reason I started playing live mixed games. I played a little bit the Stars 100, 208 game, and JRB was organizing this game when Arya first started with Tommy Fisher and a few other, this guy Lance and Jimmy Warren was the other guy. And these were all the old school Vegas mixed game guys who crushed, all the amateurs who would come play with them, and they were super nitty or whatever. Tommy Fisher was a big time gambler. And he's like, hey, you got to come play this game. And the mix was a bunch of games I play, and then No Limit Single Draw was in there. And I was like, I've never played this game. He's like, you're a great No Limit player. You'll figure out this game. Triple draw. Trust me, just play. And we were playing. It was 2-4, and the single draw had a 8K cap. Yeah, 8K cap. So he takes half of me in the single draw for the session. I lose 5K in the session, but I lost 62K in the single draw rounds. I got fucking torched, and I went and studied single draw and played online versus Seaver and David Williams and a few other what was it? Anyway, a few other good players, and I learned the game. And he always talks about it, you learn the game. And he was like, would you have changed hand? I said, I think I wouldn't have gotten stacked once out of that hand. I ran so bad, and JRB to lose 30K in that spot was a huge percentage of his bankroll. Yeah. And he was more tilted than I was as I was getting stacked every single draw hand.
Poor bastard. He's always on the wrong side of it.
But, I appreciate him. He was good to me, and he pushed for me to go there, and I had a great time playing that game. And that, got me playing the live mixed games and really got me totally tuned into what was available in mixed games. So my career would not be nearly what it was if it wasn't for JRB pushing me.
Yeah. I hope we see him a little bit at the series.
He'll show up with a bottle of wine. He'll play his events he likes. And I was happy the bracelet he won, the 6 max was crazy.
That's insane. Of all the bracelets for him to win, the 5K 6 max is just so insane. But yeah, I was happy to ship it. We were all rooting from afar that year. I think that's going to do it for us. We got to get out of here. I got some cards to go play.
Before we get out of here, I need a 1 sentence on how do I get better at deuce to 7 triple draw.
Triple draw?
Triple draw.
Start with a deuce.
All right. Well, there we go.
That's your 1 sentence, Conrad.
That's all I needed.
Take us home.
It's really important.
I mean, that's all I needed. Thanks for rocking with us again. We will be back tomorrow at our early slot. I think we're 10:30 now.
Yep.
We'll be back tomorrow at 10:30. Have a great day. Later.
Thank you.